And I remember going on the shoot with one of my videographers, and I sat in the car. It was 20 minutes away from the office. And we spent the whole time in that car ride, him saying, did I pack the spare battery? Did we email the client to let them know not to wear checkered shirts because it looks bad on screen? Did I bring the extension cable? I hope I've got that second lens. We spent the whole time discussing things that should have just been done following a checklist back at the studio before he left. So at the end of the shoot, I said, right, we'll put in a pre-shoot checklist and next time you'll follow this. About 6 months later, I go on a shoot with him again, and the car ride discussion was infinitely different. That time, we were discussing what the script was about, what emotions he wanted to get through, what music he might use. So by systemizing all of the routine and the admin-y stuff that just need to happen, it actually created space for creativity.
I'm Candice Rinardi, and this is Gratitude Geek, the podcast for building genuine, lasting relationships with clients, colleagues, and community. Today, I'm joined by the creator of Systemology, David Jenyns. We are talking about how systems save you money. But first, a promo from our friends at HoneyBook. HoneyBook is a client relationship platform that helps independents manage clients and projects with ease and confidence. With easy-to-use tools that create elevated client experiences, HoneyBook makes running your business and getting paid on time simpler. I use HoneyBook to manage the workflow of this podcast, and I absolutely love it. I couldn't do this show without it. Check out the show notes for a special offer for Gratitude Geek listeners. Welcome, Dave.
Hey, Candice.
I have been listening to your book for the last few days, and I just feel like we're old friends now, and we're just going to pick up the conversation where it left off.
Fantastic. Yep, I'm keen to hear all the questions you might have.
So tell us about you. Tell us your story. What do you want the audience to know about you?
I am a business owner since day dot. I've been involved in numerous different businesses, from rock and roll clothing music stores to stock market education to importing products from China. Like, I've done a lot of different things. My last business was a digital agency, and I was very much stuck in that for well over 10 years, just in the day-to-day. And then I had that big moment where I was like, this is a turning point for me. I don't want to be the dad who's always too busy, always working. And then I went on a real dedicated journey to go, how do you build a business where the business owner is not the center cog? And that's been my mission for the past 5 or 6 years.
Only 5 or 6 years. So this is relatively new.
For Systemology, so I've always had a little bit of a theme of systems in the different businesses I was involved in. Like the rock and roll clothing music store, we were modeling off an American business called Hot Topic, and we tried to franchise it. So we took a lot
Sorry, can I laugh about that?
Yes, of course.
There's a South Park episode about Hot Topic so whenever I hear Hot Topic, I always just giggle on the inside. So you were trying to model off of Hot Topic and then turn your
and bring it to
stores
Australia
into a franchise. Okay.
So yeah, we were basically launching a store called Planet 13 in Australia, and we franchised it. We actually got 3 stores franchised, and I learned a lot of lessons there. Obviously, franchising, there's a lot of process in that. And then also, I was in the stock market education space. That was all about creating trading plans, and you follow a process. So systems has always been there. But it was strange. In the digital agency, the reason I got stuck there is I thought that business was different. And I thought, Google's always changing its algorithm. You can't create a system that gets out of date. We're a creative digital agency. My team's not going to want to follow process. So I had all of this extra baggage why systems and processes wasn't going to work in that business, even though I'd seen it work in all of my other businesses. So that was a big part of, as I removed myself out of the day-to-day, then I went, hang on, I kind of have fallen out of love with the digital agency space. And I thought I need to start on something new, what would really fulfill me. And then that's when I came across Michael Gerber, had a chance to work with him. I tell that story in the book. And that was a big part of the birthing of Systemology. I thought, you know what, that's what I'm passionate about, helping business owners step away. And then I started working, and I say 5 or 6 years, but I kind of feel like I've been working on systems probably for closer to 25.
So the Michael Gerber experience happened before Systemology.
Yes. So I had a software as a service that I was kind of had a little pet project on called System Hub, which was just as I was kind of getting Melbourne SEO to where it needed to be as far as me stepping out. And then the Michael Gerber experience happened and I started to realize, hang on, people don't just need another piece of software. They need to know how to do it. What is the process? What is the framework? And then really it was kind of like the marriage of some different things that I was doing, some ideas with Michael, and then we kind of birthed Systemology.
Yeah, if you don't know how to use the system, it doesn't help you. So this is your book, Systemology. Yes. Create time, reduce errors, and scale your profits with proven business systems. And the foreword was written by Michael Gerber. He's the author of E-Myth. I want to tell you a story. My husband and I started our business in 1998. And one of the first things that we did was read the E-Myth together. And we put our systems in place. And by 2004, we had retail stores selling our product in 25 states because we put our systems together. A lot has changed since then, right? And the E-Myth was fantastic, but I don't know if it's necessarily, when was the last time it was updated?
I don't know exactly. He came out with the E-Myth Revisited, but I always felt with the E-Myth, just like many of the books, Traction, Scaling Up, Built to Sell, Work the System, they talk very top level as to why you need process and they build the case for it. They don't really show you the how. That was where I always felt the gap was, which is, what are the first few systems I should get in place? How do I get that knowledge out of the head of the team member? Where am I going to store that? Like all of those questions I felt were unanswered. That was a big part of what Systemology was about. And I agree, there's a lot that felt like it had moved from when Michael had done his work for the E-Myth. And even since launching Systemology, there's been a huge amount of change in the way that I think of it and approach it with everything we're seeing with AI. So it's the speed of change and what you need to be doing to get this working in your business is evolving.
The other book that we read when we launched our business was Who Moved My Cheese? And we made our employees read it too.
Yes, I love that one.
So Who Moved My Cheese is about embracing change and understanding that change is inevitable and how to navigate change. When you have a good system and things change, you can just adjust the system. I feel like I'm coming full circle in my life by having this conversation with you because of where I got started as an entrepreneur was the E-Myth. And then I met Alan Dibb, who is your neighbor. You and Alan Dibb are neighbors. Yeah. And he introduced me to you. And when he introduced me to you, he told me that you were the Michael Gerber of the modern age. And I was like, this is perfect. This is perfect. I totally want to meet him and I want to talk to him. And then I read your book and I was like, yeah, we're having a conversation. So tell me what Systemology is. Explain to me what Systemology is.
So it's a 7-step process to systemize your business. So it's, what do you do first? What are the first 10 to 15 systems do you document? Where in the team is the knowledge? Like that's step number 2. We call that define. Step number 3 is assign. So we got define, figure out what systems. Then we've got assign, where is the knowledge? Then we have extract, which is how do we get it out of the brains of your team members? Then we've got organize, which is, and where is that knowledge going to be stored? And what tools are you going to use? Then we've got integrate, which is getting the team on board. How do we get them to buy into this process and what we're doing? We're changing the company culture. And then we look at scale. What are the additional systems that need to be in place to grow the business? You know, recruiting, onboarding, managing, some finance management, those types of things. And then lastly, it's optimize, which is a little bit counterintuitive. A lot of people start with optimize, but I found the best wins come from just making what is already working repeatable and removing that key person dependency. So it's those.
But you can't really optimize until you understand the system.
Nailed it. You're a process sister there. I love it.
Most of the folks listening are solopreneurs, and I'm a solopreneur. but I have systems I even have a system for the way that I write a blog post. All right. I have systems for everything. So you're preaching to the choir when you talk to me, but for someone who's a solopreneur right now listening to this going, I don't have time for systems. Systems won't work for me. Why do I need a system? Because I'm just a solopreneur. What do you have to say to them?
You just need to chunk up the level or redefine what you think a system is in your head. You might be overcomplicating this, and you're probably right. When you're a small solopreneur, you don't need detailed how-to documents for every single thing in your business because you're not going to get much leverage from it. But having high-level checklists on how you do things to make sure that nothing's missed, just like a pilot might use a checklist before they fly off in their plane, even though they've flown a plane many thousands of times before, they still have a checklist in place. Just the same in business, there should be a checklist. And if you ever have dreams of it growing beyond you, or you having some team members and you move beyond being a solopreneur, it's the first step to delegation and passing something off and setting the standard for which you would like things to be done. Not only do you need them for yourself, just to make sure nothing slips through the cracks and keep it at high level, but also if you want to grow at some point, you will need a way that you can pass this knowledge on.
I like the analogy of it being the pilot checklist, because that is what all of my systems are. This is what needs to get done. Check, 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 check. When I record a podcast, check, 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 check. When I release a podcast, check, check, check. Did I check all the boxes? And that's really all a system is. And you were right. A lot of people just make it too complicated.
Sometimes that could even be a Loom, like a little Loom video of you doing the task. You record it, or a Loom or a Zoom, and then you take that recording, depending on if you're using some sort of meeting notes software or if you've got a way to get it transcribed, and then you just pop over to ChatGPT, cut and paste the transcript in and say, hey, ChatGPT, this is a transcript of me doing a task. Can you write me a quick checklist for this? So next time I do it, I have my key bullet points. That's a really easy way to get started.
You just simplified the whole process. That is so basic.
Yeah, it's never been easier.
Oh my goodness gracious. All right. So what other mistakes do small business owners make when they're thinking about systems?
A lot of business owners think that they're going to need to be the one that creates all of the systems. Now, when you're a solopreneur, those first few checklists will be you. When you get a team member on board, you actually want to start indoctrinating them early on that you're a process-driven organization and you want to empower them to create the checklists. Or you might record that Loom video we talked about, and then you pass that to them and you say, watch this, turn it into a checklist, and then you give it a go next time. So there's definitely like that's a hurdle. People will often overcomplicate or think that they're going to need a lot more systems than they actually need. As a solopreneur in a small team, you're getting stuff done and you're doing it and you're filling in the gaps when there aren't any process. So it's really about identifying where are the critical processes. It's the 80-20. What are the most critical systems? And let's start there. Let's get very clear on how you onboard a client, or how you deliver the work, or the way that you do your regular marketing or send out an email. Like, you might find a small collection. It's oftentimes a smaller collection of the most critical systems will have a much larger impact than you appreciate. There's, some misconceptions, and other areas where people go wrong would be not sticking with it long enough. Sometimes there's a critical mass that happens, and it's very much, you put a system in place, saves you a little bit of time. You put another system in place, saves you a little bit more time, reduces some error. Those first handful of systems, you don't notice the impact. It's when they start to stack on top of each other, and there's a compounding exponential effect that happens once you reach almost like a critical mass of systems. But what a lot of people do is they give up too early. They do it for a month or a couple of months and they go, I tried that thing, it didn't really help, or put it into place and my team didn't follow the process, so it wasn't really worth it. Or my team pushed back. There was some resistance. So, this isn't going to work for us. Generally, that's one of the biggest challenges that people have, is just not committing to it long enough. Yet all of the rewards come once you get over that hump and that critical mass. And the reality is, you will never build the business of your dreams without process, as in something that, if you're a business owner, is a profitable enterprise that works whether you're there or not, meaning you can have a holiday and the business can continue to work, and then you can come back and pick up where you left off. It can't be done without great process. So you have to figure this out at some point.
Like I said at the beginning, this is about the money. The money is in the systems. And that's a quote from the book. I think I might have it wrong, but I think that's the quote from the book. And then you're talking about the critical client flow is where you start in the first system that you put together for your clients. And you basically just brushed over what it is, but understanding and starting with the client first, because without the client, there is no money. So talk about that.
A lot of people ask the question, well, where do I get started? What's the first system or two? And there are different ways that people approach this. Some people say, start with the easy stuff first, start with the hard stuff first, start with things that can buy back your time, start with, like, there's so many different ways, and all of them can work. But I just come back to, what is the purpose of the business? The purpose of the business is to deliver on a promise that you make to a client, and then that client is going to pay you. And something magical happens to the business owner when the core product or service can be delivered without them. Most business owners have never experienced that. They've only ever experienced them being involved in the marketing, the selling, the onboarding, the delivery, like they're all the way through, they're involved. So I start off and I say, what would happen if we could have the business owner get the core product or service marketed, sold, and delivered without them, without key person dependency, and we create systems for each of those stages? That's what the critical client flow aims to capture. It's a very simple exercise. It's a one-page document. Top left-hand corner, you say, who's my dream client? And then you say, what is the first product or service that I sell to that person? And then you map the linear journey of capturing their attention, handling the incoming inquiry, selling them, onboarding, delivering. Very high level. It's a one-pager. At each stage, there's a box and you put not more than 3 or 4 words in it. And my other rule is you only capture what you're currently doing, not what you would like to be doing. Just as a starting point, we aim for repeatability. And that then becomes the blueprint from which we work. We can then start to work on documenting the processes throughout that journey. And sometimes you can even go a step further. I'll often say, where in the critical client flow is the pain? Like, are you having trouble selling? Do you not have enough leads? Is it the client management and managing their expectations, and they're always chasing you up and finding out where things are up to? Like, you find out where in the critical client flow is the pain, and then you actually lean into that. That can be the first place you start.
It's brilliant. But even just doing that one system gives you so much power, because then you can see all the pieces. And you like, well, this is the way we're doing it now, but this is where we need to put oil in the cog, right? We need to grease this wheel. And so let's figure out how to grease this wheel.
It becomes really obvious when you do a critical client flow if there's a big chunk missing, and you then start to go, I have all of these problems, and very clearly it's because this chunk is missing. I don't have enough leads coming into my business. Well, I don't have any consistent lead generation systems that I'm following day in and day out that continually put leads into my marketing funnel that I can then sell to. Like, again, sometimes people do this exercise and they write, the only form of leads or consistent marketing I've got is word of mouth. And that's the only thing they have on the top line. And that's just a great signal to the person that, hey, you got to go to work on your marketing systems.
Okay, so something that a lot of folks listening might think is that if I got all these systems in place, does that leave any room for creativity?
Yeah. So one of the misconceptions is that systems remove creativity when the reverse is true. The way I had my big breakthrough is in that digital agency we talked about way back at the start. I had a sister company in there, which was a video business. So as part of our digital marketing, we would make videos for clients. And I remember going on the shoot with one of my videographers, and I sat in the car. It was 20 minutes away from the office, and we spent the whole time in that car ride, him saying, did I pack the spare battery? Did we email the client to let them know not to wear checkered shirts because it looks bad on screen? Did I bring the extension cable? I hope I've got that second lens. We spent the whole time discussing things that should have just been done following a checklist back at the studio before he left. So at the end of the shoot, I said, right, we'll put in a pre-shoot checklist and next time you'll follow this. About 6 months later, I go on a shoot with him again, and the car ride discussion was infinitely different. That time, we were discussing what the script was about, what emotions he wanted to get through, what music he might use. So by systemizing all of the routine and the admin-y stuff that just need to happen, it actually created space for creativity. So that's where I think people get it wrong. For some reason, they think, oh, if you're just following a process, but we systemize everything around the creativity, which then gives the creativity the space it needs to breathe.
I love that. And it makes me think of like Picasso. Picasso systemized his art. He systemized his art so well that he had people doing his art instead of him. But when you put together the workflow, it does make it easier for those creative juices to, okay, I've done all this. Let's get to work. Let's make this beautiful.
Elite sport players, they talk about having a routine before they do something or just before they switch on. I remember hearing, maybe it was Federer talking about his process, and it was even down to the process between points. Once a point was served, he would deliberately turn his back on the opponent and the net and walk in the opposite direction. He would swap his tennis racket into the other hand to give his main hand a little bit of a rest. And the turning the back in his brain was a way to kind of refresh, and every new point is, like hitting the reset button. That in itself, it's like a little process that he developed, which meant then when he gets around ready to play the next point and he turns back and he swaps the racket back and he's on, like that was his process for being the best he could be when the game was actually on.
And I think a lot of tennis players have mimicked his process because you do see that a lot. I don't know tennis match lingo, but they make a point or whatever it is that they do, and then they turn their back and they walk away in the opposite direction. Yeah, a lot of them do it. I think I've seen Serena Williams do it. Yeah. How interesting. So he probably taught them that system, or they learned it by watching him.
Yeah. Look, there's going to be coaches and elite people that kind of pick up on that sort of thing. The main thing I like to think about when it comes to process is just a documented habit. It's finding your best habits. It's documenting them to then make it transferable and teachable. So in the tennis world, there's probably a coach who's picked that up and that's become a thing, and then that's taught rather. Tribal knowledge, which is one tennis player knows how to do this and it's stuck in their head, to this is now a recognized process that can be taught and transferred. And we're doing the same thing in business.
And you don't have to come up with your own processes. If other people are doing them well, there's no reason why you can't copy them.
100%.
So I want to talk about McDonald's. I don't know what it's like in Australia, but here in the United States, the cash register at McDonald's has pictures of the products, and the cash register just pushes the picture.
Yeah.
You can't get any more basic and simple and easy than that. So they've McDonald's has basically made it so that anybody can work there.
Yeah.
I want your thoughts.
even here in Australia, they've gone one step further because our wages are so high. Now there's a lot of self-checkout kiosks, and they'll have the screens in there. It's the same menu. Rather than having someone on the other side pushing the buttons, now you push the buttons.
Yeah,
and then
they have that here too. Our
yes,
wages are not high, but
yes,
they still have those.
you're, McDonald's, they are the poster child for systemization, and for better or for worse. There is a lot that can be learned from them, but I think business owners can get into trouble blindly following McDonald's, thinking that's the gold standard for systemization, because I'll take a guess that probably 99.9% of the people listening to this right now aren't running a hamburger business. So we don't necessarily want to model exactly the systems that a hamburger business uses to scale globally. And not only that, they've been doing it for 70 years.
Well, the other thing about it is that people who have creativity do not want to work in a situation where they have to do it this way, that there's no leeway. So there's a balance.
Yes. And Reed Hastings from Netflix was interviewed, and they were talking about his early journey to systemization. And he said, we initially wanted to dummy-proof our business. We systemized everything down to every minute detail, and we wanted to have it completely systemized, and it was completely dummy-proof. The only problem was only dummies wanted to work here. And he realized that there is a balance, and you may be recruiting A players that have certain level of skill and training in a specific industry, and that if you go too far, it repels them. We have to remember McDonald's is hiring 15-year-old kids who haven't yet worked in the workforce to got any experience, so they have to train to a certain level and to a certain way, because that's who they're recruiting and onboarding. A lot of small business, you're trying to recruit top talent that comes pre-wired with a certain amount of skill. So if we tell someone too much or give it too prescriptive, it can repel them. That's why some of the things you were talking about, checklists are great, because here are the key milestones, but it also leaves the room for the team member to apply some of their knowledge as well.
Yeah. So balance, but you know what? You have to have balance in everything. You have to have balance in everything. When a small business owner is starting out with this whole, oh my God, I've got to systemize, I don't want to be like McDonald's, but I want to have enough relief. They're starting to feel overwhelmed. So what's your advice for them?
Always, whenever you're feeling overwhelmed, just chunk up one level. Sometimes you're overwhelmed when you're too deep in it, surrounded by too many options, and you're getting caught up in all of the detail. If you can take a step back, and that's why we talk about starting with the critical client flow. That's a high-level workflow that just explains how a customer moves through your business. Start there, and then just pick one process. Where is the pain? And do the same exercise. This is a game of stacking the successful habits on top of each other over a long period of time. So how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you systemize a business? One system at a time. You just start and chip away at it. This is not a one and done. You don't get to some magical finish line and say, I run a systemized business. This is a cultural shift. We're looking at changing the way that you and your team think about the work that they're doing and how they capture what it is that they're doing to make it transferable. We're creating an accountable, transparent organization where it's clear who's doing what by when and how is it done.
Yeah, and one step at a time. This morning, saw a video on LinkedIn, and it was two little boys running a obstacle race. Now, each of them had a bunch of cups lined up equal distance apart. And the object was to be the first person to put every cup in the bucket, right? And you could only pick up one cup, put it in the bucket, pick up the next cup, put it in the bucket. One kid started at the closest cup, and the other one started at the farthest away cup. And who do you think finished first?
I almost think the counterintuitive is going to be the one that started furthest away.
And
I don't
that
know.
is the person who finished first, was the person
Yeah,
who started first. Because as he got closer and closer to the end, all of his cups were closer to the bucket.
yeah,
And so he could quickly put them in. But that's a system. That's figuring out the system. He knew the system. He knew which would work. I'll link to that video. I'll try to find it on YouTube because I know not everybody's on LinkedIn. But I'll link to that video in the show notes.
all the best business advice is often counterintuitive. And I mean, you hear this idea of you have to go fast. Sorry, you have to go slow to go fast. And that's really what systemization and getting systems in place is about. It takes maybe a little bit longer to get a process or a checklist down. I get it. Like that is a little bit of work, but you're going slow to go fast. That means next time you follow a process and you don't have to think about it, which actually ends up saving you a little bit of time and reducing a little bit of error. So that little bit of work up front means that you go faster. And then, like I said, these starts to stack. Like if you have good marketing or sales systems, it actually means that it's easier for your operations because now the handover is easier and you've set the expectations correctly, which makes it easier to deliver. So they all start to bleed into each other and have this compounding effect. So yeah, we need to go slow to go fast.
When you get your system set up at the beginning, it makes things so much easier. Example, when we started our business, we were pregnant. And so while I was building our website and building our back-end systems and figuring out the workflow for clients and everything, I had a baby. By the time she was old enough to go to school, I was there at the bus stop with her when she got on the bus, and I was there waiting for her when she got off the bus, and I was done with work. I had systemized my business so that I was there for my kid when she was home, and I was working when she was at school. Yeah. That's what systems do. That's what systems do. It just gives you the ability to prioritize what's important to you.
Yeah, I think in business, you're playing a game of prioritization. There's never enough time in the day to do everything. So you have to choose what it is that you're going to work on. And you want to capture what you're doing and what works so it can be delegated down to oftentimes maybe a less skilled or a lower cost team member to then free you up to do higher value work. And once you're freed up, you then get to make the choice. The thing is, a lot of business owners don't have the choice. I work with some business owners that when they free themselves up, they actually work more hours and lean more into it. They just start working on higher quality stuff. Other business owners mean that they can step back and they might have more time for the friends and the family and that part of their life. What I want is the business owner to have the choice, because some business owners, they just get stuck on it. It's almost like they're on like the rat race or in this wheel that they're running around. They're solving the same problems again and again and again. It's the same thing. Like the client asking the question that you've answered 10 times before, 100 times before, and you're answering it again. You create a system to try and solve it once and for all, and then that enables you to work on a higher quality problem.
Yeah. There was a guest I had on the show. One of the things that he said was, you always have time for what's important to you. And when you have your systems in place, you figure out what's important.
Yes. Yeah. I like that.
One more question about systemizing in small business owners. How do you balance systemization and personalization? So how do you make your clients feel special, even though it's part of a system?
Yeah. So this is part of the training for the team. We always talk about systems, especially with email templates and things like that. They're a starting point. It'll speed up the process, but I'm not looking for robots in my organization. I'm looking for humans who think. And just the same way that I think about AI is the same way that I think about systems. Like they will augment the human. They get the human to move quicker and do better work, but I don't want to have non-thinking humans. We don't just cut and paste the template and send it, because that doesn't feel very human. We have the template, we read the client's response, we think about, they've said this, and okay, well, I'll reference that in the first sentence. Then we move into the template. So that's also part of the culture that you need to bring, which is to kind of really encourage the human element of things. There is, again, like you said, in everything, there's a balance, there's a fine line. Some people, especially small business owners, they can offer very bespoke solutions to all of the products and services that they're selling through to clients, which will introduce its challenges when you're trying to scale. So oftentimes you might start off with bespoke. That helps you to learn about your clients and the problems that they have and how your solution helps them. But then what you want to do is, at some point, you want to identify a primary target audience that you're serving. What is the problem you're solving for them? And then you actually tailor your solution to them and deliver a really great result. What that enables you to do, then that means in your marketing, you want to go out and find more people like that and start selling to them and delivering a solution that is a bit more, it's not as bespoke because it's tailored and optimized to that person, and it actually delivers a better outcome for them. And that's a shift that needs to happen also in the business owner when you start to realize, early days, you just say yes to everything. As you grow in business and you figure out who you can help and the problem you're solving, you actually want to start saying no to those people that don't necessarily fit into that. And you say yes to the people that you can really over deliver on, which also means you can then develop the system and the process and optimize to that scenario, which means you get them a better outcome, oftentimes at a lower cost, because you're developing the process.
Brilliance. All right. My next question is gratuitous. You mentioned Kaizen in your book, which is the Japanese concept of incremental improvement. And I have been wanting to talk to somebody on this show about Kaizen for years. So let's talk about Kaizen.
I remember way back in the day, I used to do a lot of the personal development stuff. And I remember going to a Tony Robbins event, and he kind of made his own version of Kaizen. And then I realized, hang on, this is just Kaizen. He called it CANI, constant and never-ending improvement. But it all comes back to, yes, the Kaizen philosophy, which is making micro improvements every day. Like, this is a big part about the way that I think about systems, and why I said it's not one and done is because you're constantly, like, these systems should be living, breathing documents that evolve over time. And where can we improve this? Where is the additional efficiency? That really is the only way to create something great. You can never create something great on your first iteration. You test and measure and get feedback and learn what works, and you're making these constant adjustments.
And it feels like you're making just little incremental changes, but if you put $1 in the bank every day, you've got $365 at the end of the day. If you lose a pound a week, you've lost 52 pounds at the end of the year, right? So
yes,
little tiny incremental things start to add up.
This is a great book for those that are listening to it. I'm holding up a book of Atomic Habits by James Clear. And there is a bit, I don't have the number right here, but he talks about basically 1% improvements, and when stacked up upon each other, what that equals at the end of the year. And it was some huge amount, this idea of the compounding effect and just continuously chipping away. Equally, the same philosophy you want to bring to systemization.
It's brilliant. All right. Is there anything that we have not talked about that you want to talk about?
The one thing I'll often say is, just because you might not see yourself as a systems person doesn't mean you can't own a systems-driven business. Like, for some people listening to this, straight away they're going to go, yes, systems make sense. I'm a systems lover. Okay, yes, perfect. And then there are going to be other people that don't see themselves as a systems person. And I think one thing I want you to think about is all the more reason to surround yourself as you grow with systems-driven people. We know systems-driven businesses deliver better outcomes. There's no two ways about it, no argument. They're better for clients, they're better for staff, they're better for the bottom line, so they're better for the business owner. So they're just better. So if you're weak in that area, then make sure that your first or second hire is strong in that area. Find a detail-oriented, process-driven person who can be the yin to your yang. Because it's actually very common for a lot of business owners to not be systems people. They're visionaries, they're big picture people. That's very common. So just make sure that you get someone to complement you. So that's probably one thing. Yes.
Fill the gaps.
Yeah.
Fill the gaps. That's how you build a strong business, is by filling the gaps. All right. I can't believe I got through all my questions. That's amazing.
There was one topic I wanted to mention because it's just front and center for me at the moment, is around AI and the impact.
Yes, let's talk about AI.
Having. The more that I focus on this, the more that I realize why systems and process is so important right now. Because the systems and the process will become the programming of the machines. Now, you might not be ready to embrace AI right now, or you might be using it a little bit here and there for ChatGPT to proofread your emails and things like that. We know a revolution is coming. These robots, we're only a couple of years in. They're only going to get smarter. They're only going to be able to do more. And this is hugely growing. Where a lot of business owners get stuck with AI is they look at all of the possibilities of what it can do, and then they get overwhelmed and stuck in deer in headlights because I can get it to create my social media graphics. I can get it to do this or that or whatever. And what you need to be thinking about is, what am I currently doing, and how can AI help me do that faster, cheaper, and better? So the idea of getting great clarity around your core processes means then it's so much easier the next step to then go, I can now replace this whole process or this chunk of this process by leveraging this AI tool. And that's the correct way to approach AI and getting it working in your business.
I agree. And in the future, which will be tomorrow, the people who know how to prompt those AIs the best are the ones that are going to, it's going to be about who can manipulate and use the AI the best, that is going to get the best results. That's where the creativity is going to come in. And it is a creative thing.
And what is a prompt? A prompt is just a set of instructions. And that's all we're talking about with process. Like, we're talking about a set of instructions. So that's why I feel like we call them systems champions, people who work in the organization that really champion this forward. I actually think they're going to be some of the best, well-positioned people to take advantage and become great prompt engineers and AI specialists.
I use AI. I use ChatGPT every day, basically. It's learned who I am. It's learned my voice. It's learned what I do. And I can just ask it basic questions, and it'll give me specific answers that are tailored to me, right? And so I'm working on creating a new coaching program, and I basically just put in some really simple information, and it outputted 4 different programs, all of the things that's included in the programs, and how much I should charge for them. And I was like, okay, I think you know me too well.
Yeah.
But I've been training myself and training ChatGPT on how to interact with me, right? I taught ChatGPT how to give me those answers. And it's about prompting. It's the future.
You just got to start. That's the key. You just got to get comfortable with it.
Exactly. And getting comfortable with it and accepting that it's here. And now it's time to use it. So the author of my very favorite series of science fiction books, Joshua Dalzell, but in his books, he has integral, important characters in his books that are AI. He has AI characters. And I know that 100 years from now, 200 years from now, we're going to be there, where we are interacting with an AI that is so real and has emotions, and that I know that what he has predicted in his books will be true. But he also has some AI that's evil.
Yes, where there is good, there's always evil. I can't help but always look through the business lens. And exactly as you've described it there is how I can imagine it happening in business. Already we're seeing, and you talked about training the AI. So we think about as you develop up your systems and your processes and your SOPs for each different role in your organization, I can imagine training an AI on that particular role, and then a new team member who joins chats with your sales and marketing trained AI on your business, on your SOPs, and it understands your business, and then they can ask it questions. Hey, I'm new to this role. I'm looking for blah, blah, blah. Can you help me with this? And I think there will be effectively different AI characters that you will almost see as team members, and that will get connected with team members to help them accomplish their tasks and their goals. Most definitely that's going to happen. And I actually think it's a lot closer than we think.
Well, they've already trained AIs to be tutors for students, student tutors. I mean, that's level 1.
Yes. Yeah.
I can't wait for level 25.
It's going to be a wild world.
Yeah, it's amazing. All right. David Jenyns, this is your moment of gratitude. For whom or what are you most grateful?
I'm most grateful for my wife. She looks after our family, creates a nice little home unit, and lets me go conquer the world and do the work I do in business.
Thanks for tuning in to Gratitude Geek, the podcast for grateful micropreneurs building genuine, lasting relationships with clients, colleagues, and community. Our theme music is by Rev Brock and Soul Lily. To connect with David Jenyns and check out the resources we discussed, head over to the show notes at gratitudegeek.com. This is episode 260. I've been your host, Candice Rodarty. Stay groovy, my friends.
Stay groovy.